Call the meeting to order. This is the October 4, 2016 meeting of the Town Planning and Zoning Commission. First item on the agenda is meeting minutes from September 13 and 20, 2016. Motion to approve by Commissioner Alessi. Second by Commissioner McAleese. Everybody have copies of those? I took a look. I didn't see any errors or corrections. Anyone else? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? The meeting minutes pass unanimously. For the record, Commissioner Corcoran and Ford, you're sitting in for Commissioner Noonan and Kennelly. Next item is 60 Raygate Road, request of Attorney Ray Rizzio to make a payment in lieu of sidewalk and curb construction in a two-lot subdivision.
Okay, this is a little bit unusual. Typically, we see these as a request to waive curbs and sidewalks. The applicant expressed some interest to pursue that, and we advised them that we didn't think that was going to be well received by this commission, as there's been a long history in trying to avoid such waivers. But they took another look at it, and I do have some very low quality photos from Google Maps looking both up and down the street. And there's a bit of a topographic change here, and it turns out they're not looking to save the money, they just don't think it would look right in front of these two new homes where there's no other curbs or sidewalks on the street, and there's a little bit of a slope in front of their house. So what they've offered to do is take the money that's in dollar amount comes from the bonded. When a subdivision is approved, a bond is posted, and the amount of the bond is calculated by your engineering department on a linear foot cost basis for the various improvements. And so they have offered to make a payment, and the correct amount should be $13,630 to the town's sidewalk account, so that the town would have the money to spend it elsewhere rather than having them installed in front of this subdivision. And you do have a report from our engineering department concurring that they don't see there's a real need to do it in this location, and they could put it in their sidewalk account to do it elsewhere. So it's a waiver in some respects, because you're waiving it to be installed in front of this property, but the applicant is not looking to eliminate their financial responsibility. They'd give a check to the town, and then the town could then spend the money for sidewalk improvements elsewhere. We don't have the authority to permit or require this applicant to do an off-site improvement.
Thank you.
So that is what's before you.
I had one question. Laura Pooley's email says that Bill Hurley will be submitting a comment regarding his notification of the request of Fairfield Bike and Pedestrian Committee.
I'm sorry. I got that late today. I'm sorry. The Bike and Ped Committee thought that it would be I think they were a little confused about the request, but they thought it would be a precedent. Our codes are designed to increase sidewalk coverage, and a payment would not guarantee that that's accomplished. And they agree that while this isn't a high priority, there may be a preference to do it. The location would be determined by the town. And then my reply back was, I believe their comments are in line with the objectives of this request. Is not that money would be available for the town to spend elsewhere rather than in front of this property. And so the response I got back from that is thank you, or the committee would just be interested in learning how the town ultimately spends the money. Is what they're up or down? No. They had some concerns about setting a precedent, and I don't know that this is something that we want to do frequently, but in this case, I think it's a good example. The only other close example of this that I can recall is the subdivision that was approved some years ago on the corner of Duck Farm and Mill Plain. Mm-hmm. Mill Plain sidewalks were installed, and they were required to do them on Duck Farm, but there's a Mill River bridge crossing there that only has a sidewalk on one side, and it's on the other side of the street. So they offered to not do it in front of their frontage, but do it on the other side of the street, which was was accepted. So we can't require it, but since the applicant is offering to make the payment, that's why we put it before you. So it's a little unusual, not completely unprecedented, but we can't require them to do it, but they're offering to make the payment in lieu of doing it in front of this property.
Okay. Thank you. Can I have a motion?
I mean, I'll make a motion to approve for discussion purposes.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Alessi for discussion.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Commissioner Barretts. So, my initial reaction is we have made a very solid, conscious effort to require sidewalks wherever we can and wherever they're required under the regs. And we've never accepted money in lieu. In my recollection, and I've been doing this for a number of years now, and I think we ought to think about whether this is going to elicit similar requests, in the future. I mean, it's not that we haven't had the request for waiver over the years. I mean, virtually, every other application for subdivision has a request for waiver of the sidewalks, because for some reason nobody wants to build them. And I would say in 95% of the times, we have, steadfastly refused that. I do see the development, the street here doesn't have sidewalks on either side, but I mean, I was not exactly thrilled when I saw this. Yes, Commissioner Kennelly.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. What I'm concerned about, and I'm going to, I'll ultimately defer to the opinions of my senior colleague, who's long been a strong advocate on this issue, that there's a reason why these regs are in place. My concern is this: one of I imagine it's sort of the future frontier for development, at least for single-family residential in Fairfield, will possibly be the tear down of smaller homes and the subdivision of larger lots in the future. We're seeing this in the beach area. We're seeing more of it in neighborhoods in the future. I think you'll see there's a lot of talk about areas like Loder Drive, the connecting area between along Burroughs Road, places where the houses are small but the lots are significant. And I see this on Morehouse Highway, where small homes are being demolished. Multiple homes are being placed on the single lot, a previous single lot. Right around the corner from where I live, a home that had it was over 150 years old, right on Stratfield Road, was demolished. 2 homes were built. So I understand the concerns that applicants like this raise when they say, well, gee, the rest of the area doesn't have the sidewalk. But to me, in a future where the likelihood of any significant single-family residential development is likely to be that kind of development, this is actually the best way to encourage sidewalks, which improve pedestrian safety, improve general traffic safety. So if there's a good argument to give the waiver, I'm thrilled about the idea of the fee in lieu, but for me it seems like I'd be a no here. Thanks.
Commissioner Barretts.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. I'm not sure on that, and we have a long history, as Mr. Wentz said, of not waiving this. That to waive, the only reason it gives us authority to waive it is that it's in our regulations. It says we can waive a subdivision regulation if it's a 3/4 vote. So really, you only need 2 negative votes. So in my experience, I think we've waived maybe 2 of these, and the only time we waive them is usually if there's a safety issue, if the presence of a sidewalk would actually create more of a safety issue than the absence. We've had a lot, and again, it's always somebody saying, there's not on any of the streets, and we require them. Really looking back, a lot of the ones that people didn't see a use for became useful. There was one on Bronson Road where, that's several miles of road without sidewalks, and they put one in, and they go, oh, people walk to the bus stop now, they use that sidewalk. So, and even the parcels on the street, I live on one of those streets, it's actually comforting the part of the road that has a sidewalk. So any new development, I think it's in the A and B zone, requires a sidewalk.
A, B, and C.
A, B, and C. It doesn't, in AAA, AA is not required, so nobody's looking to put sidewalks in AAA or AA zone. But it is a requirement. The only thing that's interesting here, and I want to get people to think, is the money in lieu of, we've never been offered this before. In fact, it's not in our regs, it's not like open space where it's something we can do, but, you know, I mean, it is an interesting proposal only because the town can perhaps benefit better by, you know, using money for sidewalks. We're talking about depositing the sidewalk fund. Again, I'm not sure the exact mechanics of this and ensuring like where exactly it will be used and how Public Works would do it, but, I mean, Public Works does put in sidewalks. You know what I'm saying, on, you know, main roads have not, you know, they've done some sidewalk improvements, so, I'm not necessarily a no on this, but, you know, I almost always am, so I want to hear what some of my other colleagues think about the money, because this is kind of new and we've never had this request before.
Yeah, I mean, what's next? We're gonna get, requests for waivers of parking, and they're gonna offer to pay us some money so that we can build a few parking spaces in some other part of town, you know? The list could go on, basically, you know? And I agree with you, Commissioner Barrett. It's those spots where people resisted, and then all of a sudden it gets built, and it's like, oh, sidewalks. We have a sidewalk there now, and everybody loves it, and it's safe, and it's good. Anybody else?
I'm also trying to find out, where the hell is $13,000 figure?
That number comes from, as I stated before, before a map gets recorded on the land records, they have to post security with us. So if the developer fails to do the work or is unable to complete the work, the town has the money available to do it. And there's a dollar per foot cost that's in a spreadsheet that they calculate for us. So that number is based on the linear feet of sidewalk and curb and apron.
From the contractor?
No, from the town engineering
From the town
firm.
engineer.
I'd like to gather your thoughts, Commissioner Lissa. Since you made that was a good question. One thing I worry about with setting the precedent is, how many of these would we get? In other words, let's say we get this little chunk of sidewalk, which, you know, would improve safety in that area and is part of our requirements to, over time, encourage the creation. Well, $13,000 sitting there to build that small amount of sidewalk in a town account, it's not likely, when there's all sorts of other priorities in town, that the department is going to send folks out to do a little chunk of sidewalk like that. If it was really needed, I'm sure we'd do it anyway. In other words, what we probably have to do is wait till we get a series of these, get these fees in, and then maybe the town would say, well, you got $250,000 now or something, maybe let's do something significant. So that's another problem here. I see it's too much of a sort of a drop in the bucket to really motivate town action. You know what I'm saying? That's another problem.
But just to that point, there is, the Public Works does have, I don't know what the dollar number is, but there is a line item for sidewalk construction and maintenance. So it's not, it wouldn't go into their total budget account, but
I
it would
understand,
go to that
Mr.
number.
Just,
Yeah.
so, Mr. Ward, I completely understand this
Okay.
would be dedicated to sidewalks. I'm saying that, I think we all acknowledge that 13 grand for a little chunk of sidewalk wouldn't, like, if there was some critical area where, you know, that there was protests, the RTM heard, my God, we've got to have a sidewalk here, I don't think 13,000 would stop the town fathers from going ahead, or mothers from putting that sidewalk in. I think for a real sidewalk building program that would take some time and dedication, being part of a public works effort, it'd probably take more than 13,000. So we need a bunch of these, you know, to really be significant. And that may take a while, since, as we said, we do about 95% of these we say we say no to, these waivers.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick comment.
Commissioner Martinez.
I'm also wondering, down the road, what kind of formula do we use for streets where 50% sidewalks exist, 60, 75, where do we draw the line on, you know, if one guy has 100 foot of frontage, or 50 foot, or 200, it's a little ambiguous, like what this means for other projects, whether we give someone else a similar handling by accepting this payment in lieu of. I'm inclined to say no at this point, I think. Too many questions. I really don't-
Mm-hmm.
Just to the
Anybody
point
else?
that Mr. Barrett's raised before, it does require 3/4 votes, which would be 6 affirmative votes to approve the request. It's 5.25.
It's actually 6, that's right.
Right.
So just doing the math, you know, you need 6 yeses for this to be approved.
I got to be honest with you, I'm leaning along with the Commissioner.
Michael Iso here as far as, I think we are opening up a Pandora's box by doing it this way.
Well, I mean, there's not even any authority for the proposition that we can or should accept money in exchange for a waiver of a regulation, of one of our regulations. I mean, what, you know, I mean, it's just on principle alone. I'm uncomfortable with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's not, you know, the only thing to compare it to, which is a regulation, is payment in lieu of, for open space. But open space, we have it in our regs. There's a state statute that talks
Yeah.
about that. We have a formula for what we do. We get the opinion of conservation and the open space committee if it would be a good thing to do. And sometimes they say, you know what, there's really no use for this space. So we say, well, rather than no use, we can accept payment in lieu of. The tax department is the one, they actually have a formula for calculating the pre-subdivision value of the excess land. There's a whole thing, and that's how the number comes to us. So it's statutory, it's in our regs, and it comes to us. This is...
And there's a rationale for it.
There's rationale for it.
It is that it's landlocked, it's not usable, it's wetlands, it's this, it's that, it's whatever, and the town, you know, so, yeah, this is, I agree. Anybody else? Are we ready to vote? Okay. The motion on the table is to approve. So an affirmative is a grant, and a a vote no is to deny. All in favor signify by saying aye. All against, nay. Any abstentions? The item is denied unanimously. Next item are new applications to recommend a public hearing. First is 1073 North Benson Road, special exception application of Fairfield University pertaining to an addition to the existing campus center building in a AA zone.
I have really nothing to add other than that description you just read. Does require a public hearing.
Motion to approve? To move to public hearing?
Yeah, motion to approve by Commissioner Kennelly. Second by Commissioner Lessie. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Next is 1073 North Benson Road, special exception application of Fairfield University pertaining to a new student residence hall in AA zone.
Similar, they're looking to build a new dorm building up in the quad area. They built one a couple of years ago. They're looking to add another. It does require a public hearing.
Any comments, questions? Oh,
Make a motion to move to public hearing?
motion by Commissioner Kennelly and seconded by Commissioner Alessi. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Next is 1073 North Benson Road, special exception application of Fairfield University pertaining to a new parking structure in a AA zone.
This, as it's described, the location for this is, if you're familiar with the campus, as you come in the main driveway and you get to the end of that road, the campus center is to your left, and on the right is a building called the Kelly Center. It's their administrative building. There's a big parking lot there. They're looking to build a parking structure on the footprint of that parking lot. Does require a public hearing.
Presumably, this is all going to come in under one plan, and we're going to hear it all together.
I don't think so. I think these are, I would hope they're going to give you a master plan showing the whole, the big picture, but the timing of their proceedings is that the addition to the campus center building is a higher priority for them in the near term. The others are longer term projects.
Okay.
So we could, but not necessarily will they be all together.
When we did the code review for this, and you'll have the minutes of it, we did them all in one meeting. At a minimum, we're requesting that they do submit for all the hearings, master plan updating, showing where all these projects will be. But as Jim mentioned, they did mention during that review that there is a different timetable, so we requested that they give us a schedule and the timing
Good.
as part of the presentation, but you probably have at least one or two separate meetings.
Yeah, I mean, at least, like, you know, phasing, construction phasing, so that we can understand what's going on, how this is going to be implemented. All right, very good.
I'll make a
So-
motion to public hearing, Mr. Chairman?
Motion to move to public hearing by Commissioner Kennelly.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Alessi. Any other comments or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Next item is old business, the Plan of Conservation and Development update. Proposal of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission to update the Plan of Conservation and Development.
We had, when this was on the agenda back in September, there were some comments that had come in post-hearing with respect to adding some issues with respect to conservation and open space, and there was a chart that was updated pursuant to comments from Commissioner Barrett's. We've added some additional language. We've kind of recompiled it. We sent you electronic version of that a couple of weeks ago, and we included a paper copy in your packets for this particular meeting. But so beyond that, unless there's any questions, I don't have any further comment.
Okay. I guess we'll talk about it a little bit more. We did receive some last-minute comments and notes, proposed sections. Why don't we get a motion on the table and we can talk about it?
Motion to approve for discussion purposes?
Yeah, motion to approve by Commissioner Kennelly for discussion. Second by Commissioner Lessie. So, you know, we've been talking about this now for a couple of weeks. It's been out there. We did get some last-minute, well, not last-minute, we got them today. Commissioner Corcoran sent in some, I think, you know, interesting points to modify certain sections, mostly technical in nature, but some substantive comments about adding some provisions. And from one member of the public who, frankly, wrote some substantive, you know, input, which was it's very much appreciated. It's just the day of the executive session, after it was on the website for 6 months or 9 months, and after we had a public hearing and the whole 9 yards. So, you know, on the one hand, I'm really kind of loath to continue it again, but on the other hand, you know, we do now have some, I think, practical and substantive comments that we can fold into, you know, an update. So one option here is to table this again. We do not have any time constraints, in which case we can look at and consider the suggestions that have been made by the members of the public, which we appreciate, and I want to make that clear. We've been soliciting this for some time now, and I'm glad that we have received it. It's just in the process is a little frustrating. Commissioner Kennelly.
I was just going to make a motion to table it and give us an opportunity to read. I just looked at this stuff on my phone tonight on the train, and Mark's stuff, you know, like all I got initially was like Mark had a whole series. It's like I just got to the most basic things you had there, Mark, about pagination and stuff like that. And then I thought the citizen stuff was also excellent. So I'd like another meeting if we could just at least.
Okay, Commissioner Barrett.
Yeah, I think we need two things. First of all, there was a lot of input last time. Commissioner Francis had quite a bit that was incorporated.
Yep.
And then the conservation director sent a whole section in that we kind of asked for, that we incorporated. I made a few relatively minor changes, and when I looked at this today, before we got anything, I said, okay, good, we can approve this tonight. I did not have time to really read either Commissioner Corcoran's comments or the member of the public, so, you know, this is not something we do that often, so it probably makes sense, as the Commissioner says, at the table. The one thing I'm concerned about, these aren't like just sections we're gonna wrap in, like, I didn't read Mr. Reaver's comments, all of them, but it might be something that we have to do, have a meeting to discuss what we
Yeah,
want
I
to
have
incorporate,
just-
and then have another one to
Yeah, if I
do
can
that.
comment on that.
Which is
I haven't
further-
really, we haven't had a chance to fully digest it either.
Yeah.
Some of the comments, I think, again, without getting into specifics, and I'm not prepared right now.
None of us
Yeah,
are.
none of us
That's
are.
the
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
But there are some elements that I think, as we talked about in other correspondence with respect to affordable housing, for example, where I absolutely agree we need to say more about that, but I think that's more, better fits in Section 3 of the plan, which is slated. But there may be some comments here that we can, as we did previously, and I didn't mean to forget Commissioner Francis's comments, which were folded into this, that we can do likewise if that's what this commission wants to do. I just am not prepared to
Right.
speak intelligently about that at this stage. And tabling it gives us time to prepare for that.
That's what I was saying, some of them could be fold comments, but some of them might be things we want to discuss.
Right.
Just because somebody thinks something should go in doesn't mean we all agree to it. It was not quite like the...
One of the
Commissioner-
issues I think
Commissioner
I want to
Alessi is
mention
next.
about that too is if there is some substance that really is over and above the basic review that we had at the health public hearing, they may even require another public hearing.
Right.
And that's why I think, as Jim mentioned, we haven't had a chance to look at it really quickly, but some of them may be folded in to other sections that we're going to be doing in the future anyway.
Correct. My limited review was that some of them were pertinent to section 1, but others were pertinent to other sections which we're going to review down the line.
Yeah, and I think that's fair, but I think I certainly, from the staff perspective, wouldn't object to certainly tabling this to give us a chance to evaluate this and present some more meaningful commentary on that.
Commissioner Alessi.
I don't mind tabling it, I just don't want to, 2 weeks from now, get any more. So I say, after tonight, that's it, we're done taking any more information on section 1. And we just go ahead with what we have, because we could just keep on doing this every 2 weeks. It's got to come to an end. So I would say we're not accepting any more, comments or whatever, criticisms, corrections on section 1, and we just go ahead with section 1 the way it is.
Well, the other thing too that everybody should know is that once we do this update, doesn't mean that we can't update section 1 again later when we do the more, the other sections as well. So, Commissioner Francis?
Did you have a chance to check if the latest census data was used? Because a lot of it, those charts, if I remember, said '07, which would imply that they were from the 2000 census.
The census, the population stuff is from 2010. Some of the traffic information is from state counts that date back to 2007.
Yeah, it just seemed like a lot of the info was old. Who updates this for you? That Bridgeport entity, the regional metro?
Correct.
And we pay for this, I assume? And are you pleased with the results?
Yeah, I think you need to, in the bigger picture sense, and again, I have no, without any particular comment on any section, it's kind of a snapshot view of where we are, kind of giving context to the later sections, which are really the goal and policy sections of the development. So section 1, it really is not a goal and policy section, it's just kind of a background information. Yes, we want to have the most current information that's available to us, and we want to make sure it's right, and we're certainly going to take a look at these, depending on what you guys want to do with this, at the additional comments we have. But this was done the Fairfield piece was done in a broader context for a full regional plan that I think the chairman kind of outlined when we got into the public hearing process that he and Joe were involved in. So I think it's fair to say from their perspective, it's the most recent available for the purpose for which it's being used. This is not a site-specific study for any particular proposal. It's a broad regional look that we're pulling the Fairfield piece from to help us amend this first section.
Well, just to, if I can, Mr. Chairman, I think just to kind of address that and also to address the Vice Chairman's concerns about this becoming an endless process, I think that the stuff we've seen from members is usually fairly specific. It's something that we can kind of vet out ourselves by reading and saying, is this a match? We look at Mark's numbers and stuff like that, say, does this make sense? Is it more readable? Mr. Reber's stuff, I think, as he mentioned in his presentation before us in the public hearing, is more this idea of his belief that there really needs to be more of a narrative element to the first section. And I guess it'll really be up to us to review that material and decide whether we feel it needs to go right away or whether we want to further as a group kind of incorporate some of those things but work on the language. But in any case, I'll repeat that I did begin to put a motion on the table for tabling this, and I'd repeat it again so we can move on and address it.
All right, so Commissioner Kennelly's withdrawn his motion, is made a motion to table. Commissioner Alessi agrees and seconded. I agree. I mean, just to close the loop on that, very, very briefly perused, Jan Reber's comments and sections and so forth. Some of it was pertinent to section 1. And it's great. I'm happy to have it. But, at some point, as we've said, we need to get this done and move forward, and we can always incorporate more and different stuff later. So, with all that having been said, does anyone else have any more comments?
I agree, I'm all in favor of tabling it. I agree with Commissioner Lesser, we have to look at this and what we've received so far. But, again, the end result could be things could move to another section, we could decide that, which is something we'll address later, or we incorporate some minor changes. But if we get something substantive that we have to kick around, we have to have either a meeting to talk about amongst ourselves, or, as Mr. Devontae said, we might have to have another public hearing on this. Truly, that's, it's a new
You're
plan.
ultimately going to have other public hearings, there's no question about that. I'm just saying, any information we're getting after this hearing,
Yeah.
if it over and above what kind of the areas we discussed, then you're probably going to want to hold it off, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, we haven't even had the opportunity to evaluate that, to give you our guidance on that.
Yeah.
So, but we're happy to do that.
Yeah, I can't say from brief, I know Mr. Reber, we want to take a good look at what he's written, we know Mr. Corcoran. The same thing is, with Commissioner Francis, I had time, I looked at everything she wrote, and I said, oh yeah, this is good, there's nothing here that doesn't belong, and those were good things, and you incorporated them, so we just have to need the time to look at it.
Okay. Ready to vote? Okay. Motion is to table. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Items tabled unanimously. Next item is public hearing, 523 Morehouse Highway, re-subdivision application of Joseph Lagana Builders and Joseph Grosso for 2 lots in an R3 zone.
Evening. This might be a little simpler and more straightforward than some of the things we discussed up until now, so it'll be nice to take on an easy one, I think. It'll be easy, that's good. We have a 523 Morehouse Highway. It's a lot subdivided, one large lot into 2. It is city sewer, city gas, city water. It meets all regulations for size, square, drainage, everything. I can talk more if you'd like, but I think it's pretty straightforward.
Why don't you talk a little bit about the tree situation that we were notified about by the tree warden? You familiar with the 2 maples that were removed in the town right away?
They met with the tree warden. My father and uncle met with the tree warden. I think they worked out anything that they were concerned about as far as removal and planting, as far as line of sight.
It doesn't relate to line of sight. Apparently there were 2 mature maples that were removed without permission or permit from the town. And there's been a request that there be 2 maples replaced with no less than 6 to 7 inch in caliber. Approximate cost for each is $850. Setback from the road so they're not directly under the utility lines. And also 4 flowering trees, plum and cherry, be installed along the right-of-way spaced out every 30 feet.
Yeah, I think they discussed that, and that'll be all taken care of. That'll be planted and done. Absolutely.
That will be done?
Absolutely.
That's okay for a condition of approval?
Excuse me?
That's part of a condition of approval, you have no problem with that?
No, not at all.
And then, I was trying to just determine whether all the other items that Laura Cooley had noted in her review were amended and corrected on the plan.
Which one's?
Sorry. Which ones were there?
Yeah, I didn't hear you.
So there was, the, change in the zone on the grading and utility plan to R3. And I thought this was 2 additional high-level overflows for each proposed detention system.
Do you have the drainage maps? Are they available? I think they were submitted, right? Drainage maps?
Were those done?
Yeah, those are done. The drainage maps are all done.
No, I know the drainage maps are done. Were these amendments to the drainage maps done?
Oh, I don't know. Were they amended? You agreed to do them? All right, they're being done. They were agreed to be done, but they're not done yet.
Okay.
My grading and utility plan says zone 3.
It says Zone 3. Do you have the 2 additional high-level overflows?
How do we know which ones are additional, which ones are? Not seeing the
Yeah, well, that's,
the additional, each proposed.
yeah. All right. Here's green. Yeah, I see that now.
These are items that, should everything else meet your satisfaction, could be taken up as a condition, could be accepted out of the...
Yeah. Okay, I was just looking for somebody to point them out. Okay. She also talks about the sight lines, and I didn't see any sight line. Usually we have a sight line drawing.
Well, they're also
Right? Does anybody recall seeing a sightline drawing? Do you have a sightline drawing?
I do not. She said it met sightline requirements, and so we don't have a drawing available.
Well, the regulations require there to be a sightline analysis done and submitted in paper. Now, I understand that Ms. Pooley said that you demonstrated that adequate sightlines of sight exists for each of the proposed driveways, but it's required by our regulations that those be submitted in a
Oh,
drawing.
yeah, because that's what I understand. She said she would make her notes and take care of it, so I didn't realize that. So, but we'll get that taken care of if we need to, of course.
Yeah, Commissioner Barrett?
How did you demonstrate it? I mean, usually we get a drawing with like, it shows like their profiles and somebody sitting in the driveway, exiting the street at the height that a driver would sit to
Sit,
see,
look,
200 feet that way,
Photos in
300
both
that way.
directions.
So how did you demonstrate it?
I know she had visited the lot. She was with you when she visited, right? With the engineer.
Okay, she
So-
visited a lot with the engineer.
So if we need that additional information, then I guess we'll have to obtain that from her and get that done.
It's not from her, it's the applicant's requirement.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll
Because
take care of that.
That was really, I think, Commissioner Barrett's question is, how did you demonstrate? It's because her notes say applicant has demonstrated that adequate lines of sight exist. Usually, the applicant, they use that laser to measure how many feet
You can
of
see.
sight, in both directions. Do you
Right.
know what the required sight distances are in feet that
No,
you?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. off the
So
top of
you
my head.
did, so you as the applicant didn't demonstrate this to our engineer?
No, I own the property with my father and
No,
my
I
uncle.
understand. I'm
Yeah,
just-
he was at the property with her.
Did
and with the
anyone
engineer.
provide this information to the engineer?
There's a sightline detail of the grading on the first one.
Thanks.
The white plan is labeled grading and utility plan.
Oh, yeah.
Where?
This little thing here. On the left side.
Edge of travelway, I see.
I got grading and utility plan.
On the left side.
Uh,
The box, little diagram.
There's a whole box of stuff.
All right.
Sightline detail. Well, how far is it?
So, there's in the box is all the
Sightline's
numbers.
taking 10 feet back, lot A1, 25 miles per hour posted,
It's interesting, lot one.
25.
Mr. Chairman? If I may, I'm just looking at that box that we were in reference to, and,
Yeah,
I notice it says on lot 1B that they recommend removing a 36-inch maple. Is that one of the two that's already been removed, or is there a third to be,
I don't know.
That's one of the trees that's already been removed.
Okay.
Which is, so they needed to remove a town tree in order to get their sightline distance, and they did that without permission of the tree warden.
That's correct.
Okay.
So can I just,
Two.
Just so I feel better about this, I'm just trying to, could, maybe staff could explain this. I should have maybe looked at the notes more closely. We had this information on this particular drawing. Who did this work for the sightline detail that's on here? Who actually calculated this? Who went to the property, or who did that? Do you know?
Presuming it's the engineer that signed it.
Okay, and is that for the engineer for the applicant?
Correct.
Okay. So they conducted
prepared
that, this whole thing, and then submitted it to Laura Police?
Submitted through us.
Through us. And then, based on this, they signed off?
That's correct.
So where did the town tree come into this? At what point was it that they submitted something and the tree was in the way? How did the town trees eventually get chopped down without the approval of the tree warden?
In normal course of action, you need to file a permit with the tree warden before the tree is removed.
Right.
That did not occur. The tree was removed prior to that occurring. So as a result, the tree warden is recommending some
Right.
supplemental planning take place.
Right, no, I heard that, and they've agreed to it. But again, I'm just trying to understand. So this was prepared after the trees were removed? That what we're looking at now that tells us that the sightline detail, this was worked out after the trees were removed? I'm just trying to understand it. Okay.
The date of this plan is August 31st. I don't know when. 280.
Okay.
Do you know when the trees were removed?
I'm gonna actually defer. I'm looking back on dates now, August 31st. I don't know when they were removed. It would be after that, wouldn't it? Yeah, it would have been after that. It should have been after that. This is basically when we closed.
This is dated August 31st, so it's on this plan, so it has to be after that.
Yeah.
Well, my only concern is I just want to make sure that we're signing off on actual data. So if there were trees in the way, then this, at the time of the 31st of August, then this wouldn't be, couldn't have been, submitted and approved because the lines wouldn't work out if there were trees in the way to block these sightlines that are now established. So I'm trying to, but that's why they were removed. Well, that's what they just said. That's the why, because of the sightline?
Well, definitely to get the right sight line, and if it was done at the recommendation to have them removed to improve the sight line, and then drew this up knowing that they were coming
After
down. Knowing they were coming down.
Okay. So, and I'm sorry to this is less to
That's
do with
okay.
you and more to do with our process.
That's all right.
So, the engineer the applicant engineer signed off on this on the 31st, saying that the sightlines were good, and the trees were removed. This was done with the idea that, well, the trees are in the way, but when you take the trees out, this is what it'll be.
Correct.
And so we submitted this to the engineer through staff, our staff, and then still somehow trees were removed that were in a town right-of-way where it hadn't been worked out in advance with the town providing notice that we would take the trees out, or did we give notice? Did the tree warden?
The tree warden did not receive the application to remove the trees prior to their removal.
So what we have is we have a sightline presented to us that was based on removal of trees.
Correct.
That was then sent to the engineer through staff. The engineer, Ms. Pooley, approved this based on that, but somehow then later, the tree warden wasn't made aware that these trees were going to come out that were in a town right-of-way.
Yeah, we've got that in writing from the tree warden, and in fact, the maples that they removed were 24 to 30 inches in diameter. How old is a maple that's 24 to 30 inches in diameter? How tall is that?
I don't mean to, my concern here is just the process. That's what I'm concerned about, because, getting, the applicant, I don't know if they, I don't know what happened there. Look, what's done is done. That space now is kind of like a moonscape. It's been, totally denuded, go by there every day down to the lake. But, I'm just saying for future reference, this does seem, I don't know whether the word hasty is the right word, or, I understand it's just a subdivision, but
They would make an application to the
tree warden, and then this would have come out, right? So I'm saying it's like, we've got this data here that was put in our packets to peruse, but like I said, the tree warden wasn't notified that, hey, if this is going to work for Laura, you've got to sign off on these trees coming out, and that never happened. And there may have been reasons why there may have been issues with the trees. I don't know. I'm just saying, it seems like that should have happened.
The tree warden would have denied and-
I don't know what he would have done. All I'm saying is it does seem that for him to actually do his job, he should have been notified before anything came out.
Well, it's more than that. You know
Yeah.
what, and
That's my
frankly,
concern.
what tells me that the tree warden might actually have had an issue with that is that he's asking that the 2 maples be replaced. So how do we know that the tree warden wouldn't have objected to the removal of the trees in the first place? I guess my problem with the whole thing is that guys just cut down some pretty old, tall maples. I don't know whether they had any issues. I don't know whether maybe the town benefited from it. Maybe maybe they needed to be removed anyway. I don't know. But I think what we're identifying here is just an issue with how this was done, how this was handled.
And hearing it too, it makes a lot of sense. I think it's important of all the crazy overgrowth that was along that front road, which really impeded a tremendous sight line. And there's stop signs there, and you can't see. I mean, it was actually it was not in a good situation when we took ownership. Now the sight line is tremendously better, and I have no issues planting additional trees and creating the right row of trees and the right sight line so that everybody benefits going
Yeah.
forward.
And something,
I mean, getting it
frankly,
done the
might
right
be
way
an
is most
improvement,
important.
you know? Yeah.
So I mean, there's no worry that, oh, I didn't want that tree there. It's just overgrown. It's not working the way it is, and there's definitely a safer way to do it.
I think if anyone here thought it was something to do with your application or something, you'd be getting...
You're kind of looking at a timeline.
No, I'm just saying, no, what I'm more concerned about is just our process.
Right,
That's all I'm saying. The next
understood.
guy, hopefully, if he brings in a traffic sight line and he shows it to the engineer, and the engineer says, well, obviously these trees have to come out, then at least the tree warden's going to get a note, and then you're going to get, or the next person after you is going to get a note that says, hey, before you cut anything down, our tree warden's got to look. That's all.
Walk out, right.
That's, and I'm just
Right.
saying that more.
Right, and they, right, so it's
Yeah, sure.
A, B, C, D, not A, C, D.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Right, I know, yep. Aim, shoot, fire, what is it? Is that one?
What typically would ensue from that request, in what is not possible now, is a dialogue as to, what's the condition of the tree, and is there an opportunity to perhaps relocate the proposed driveway to accomplish a sight line that doesn't necessitate the removal of the tree. In some cases, the tree is going to go. In other cases, there may be options where certain other actions can be taken to save the tree based on its condition. Having removed it, that discussion is foreclosed at this point.
It is foreclosed,
Yes.
but it shouldn't in the...
I agree with you completely. Just in terms of what normally would have transpired, they skipped that step.
A maple of 24 inches is a good 50 years old and truthfully doesn't have any branches for the first 5 or 6 feet. So I doubt that it would have interfered with the sight line. It's probably all the other brush you're talking about that did.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Yes.
Commissioner McAleese.
I'm just looking at this on Google Earth, thank you. It looks like there are a couple of big evergreens in the right of way as well. Are they still there, or are they, hard to tell, I can see the trees that were taken down.
Along the road?
Yeah, it looks like there's one right next to where the maple is.
Evergreens, are they still there, the evergreens? I don't know if, I don't remember being there at all. I don't know if there was any evergreens that I could see that were along that. It would be, if that was, it was probably along the, obviously the front, looking at it from the road, the left side, which is,
Right near that stop sign, going south on Morehouse. I think it's south.
I don't think it's near the stop sign. Wouldn't it be to the left of that stop sign along the property line of the neighboring house? Because there's nothing in front, and there never was.
Maybe this is a very old shot.
Yeah, I looked at my house, Google Earth, it's about 10 years old.
Yeah.
I got a question.
Yes, okay. I don't know, I'm almost inclined to see if we can get a few more plants and trees and stuff identified, to see what else is there, and a better idea of the sightline. It looks like the distances are good, but, it seems like, isn't that a hilly street? It seems like.
It's a hill on one end, a hill on the other end, and this is dead flat.
This isn't a flat area.
I'd like to see it, like, the section cut through and see how that affects the sidewalk.
Is the drawing on the,
The drawing
On the map?
just more of a reference sketch.
Right.
Of what one would expect. I don't know.
yeah, that's really my question, is whether this, this drawing reflects the grade of the road
Of the road?
for the line, the sight lines. I mean,
It's about, I'm just gonna,
so typically, what we see is a drawing that shows the grade of the road and the sight lines with the calculations. So we have the calculations in the box that say we have 465 feet to the north, right? But what we don't see is in the drawing what that looks like in real life, and whether that 465 feet just kind of goes down a hill so that effectively the sight line goes through, off over. You see what I'm saying?
exactly, yeah, and that
Yeah.
part of the road is flat, as far as, in
Right,
either
and it may
direction,
be.
as far as you can see, right?
It may be.
Yep.
Now that the trees are gone, it may be easy for you to simply provide a drawing that will, show the grade and the calculations with the lines appropriately.
We can absolutely do that, absolutely.
Right.
I want everybody to feel comfortable that there's a sight line, the grade, any trees that they recommend to be replanted, that we replant and make sure
Yeah.
that they're, obviously as they grow, they don't interfere with the lines, they don't interfere with sight lines, that they,
Yep.
because how many of our trees are not doing that, and they're becoming, from over the years, becoming issues.
Right, which was the point of the discussion just previously, that,
Right.
there might have been legitimate reasons that the tree warden would have said, yes, please, take these down, but didn't have that
Right.
opportunity.
That tree's in the wrong spot and has been for a while.
All right?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Commissioner Beckley.
Just as a reference, if you look at your site plan, you've got what we're looking for in terms of your leaching
Yeah.
ability. That same idea.
Oh, okay, yep,
And you show the section cut through the different grades, so we see what the slope really is. That's what. This makes it clear on leaching. Easy enough to see.
Okay. Oh, fair enough, that's an excellent suggestion. So, Mr. Wendt has just suggested, made an excellent suggestion. Would you like to keep the hearing open for you to make these revisions and
Absolutely.
supply the information that we need?
Yep.
And then when we mark it back up, which I presume if you can get the materials in quickly, we can do that for our next meeting, and your engineer can come back with you and
Okay.
just talk to us about how he made the calculations and so forth. And maybe at that point, you can just identify the other open items where she said
Yep.
she's looking for some additional stuff.
and then approve at the next meeting.
You know what I mean?
Okay. Excuse me?
No, so we would hold the meeting open, the hearing open for our following meeting.
Yep.
At which time, presuming there's not 100 people coming, right, which we see today, it would close.
Okay.
And then it would be on the executive session the following meeting.
Got it. Yeah, no problem.
So if you don't have a problem with that. Okay, Commissioner Barracks?
Yeah, are we done with sightlines?
No, I have one more question.
I don't want to get, I have a question, but I don't want to get off topic, and so...
Are we off sight lines?
It's about
I
sight lines.
have
Go
a
right
question,
ahead.
and this goes to Commissioner Kennelly's point. I'm looking at this plan, it says 36 Maple to be removed for sightline. So, my opposite understanding is the architect saw this, said this tree has to come down, they cut the tree down, and the tree warden comes back and says, what the hell are you doing? You can't just cut the tree down. Is that what I'm led to believe here?
Yeah, here's the thing,
Yeah.
just to respond.
Respond to that. I actually, having gone by this about 4 or 5 times a week because I go down to Lake Mohegan, I figured this was just like one of those first cut properties like there was on Stratfield Road near my house, where they simply took down the house and they never came before us because they had the right to first cut. That's what I thought had happened, because if you look there, it's a completely radically altered topography. It's completely different from what it was. There's just now the White House about to be demoed, so I'd assumed that if the process had gone that far in changing the lot, that they must have been able to pass. But I guess all of that can be done without coming to us for anything until the subdivision is actually done. Because, right, not, you're right, but the point, but they could cut down everything, right? Oh, right, exactly, but it would, but in the end, it's the predicate for this, at least what we were told, was that the town right-of-way trees were an issue related to the sightline. But, look, you know, I would say 999 times out of 1,000, it's you guys who are leading us. But I would just say that I think there is a sense here that there's a little frustration that this process some way, and it's one subdivision, and you guys got a ton of stuff, but it does feel as though that, you know, if there'd been a better process here, maybe before some of these trees came down, maybe the warden could have said, hold it, or something, and that didn't happen here, and, you know, because maybe we could have asked that then that the driveways be moved, and the trees, you know, I mean, it's gonna take a long time for these, you know, even these very nice $1,000 trees to become 50-year-old maples again, you know?
Very rare to take trees down. Right away,
Yeah,
for competition.
right.
Yeah, well, for good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the point is that we really, I hope you recognize this frustration is it's just more about preserving the town assets and the process. And,
Of course.
you know, it takes a long time, 50 years, to grow a 50-year-old tree.
Yeah, I've been building here for
Yeah,
65.
right. And, you know, when we talk about installing landscaping and screening and things like that, and we get these landscaping plans, you know, from the top down, they've got these big bubbles, right? Say, you know, this is how, this is a XYZ tree, and we say, well, what size is that when you're going to install it? Oh, it's going to be a 6-inch, you know, right? How long is it going to take to be 20 feet tall? 15
You won't
to
see it.
20 years. Yeah, exactly. Not in my
I know.
lifetime, right?
I know.
So, all right. Does anyone else have any substantive, you said you had something on a different topic?
Different topic,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. Commissioner Barris.
I guess I won't talk about sightlines. I just hope that when you come back, you know, sightlines are a legitimate concern of subdivisions. It's a regulatory issue, it's in our regulations, so it's something there's plenty of things we can't consider on subdivisions. Sightlines, especially on a road like Morehouse Highway, which is a fairly well-traveled street, are, you know, a legitimate concern. So I hope we'll see what the sightlines are, the drawings, and also understand what the landscaping will be like and whether it would, you know, how that will work with the sightlines.
Sure.
So
Yeah, no, the
sightlines along the-
comments that she made were not sufficient, I understand.
Right, the sight line along the right-of-way. We don't, you know, is a subdivision, how he landscapes his property is his business, but anything on the town right-of-way that could impede on the sight lines, we're interested in, so I'll
Okay.
see that.
That sounds
Then,
great.
my other question is,
Okay, you only got one.
just, this is a little frustration of mine, I think it's okay, but on the grid, on the re-subdivision site plan, it has the required frontage is 20 feet. It's actually 100 feet. A regulation changed a few years ago. That is actually an error in the grid. It looks to me like you have 124 feet on each property.
That would be
So
an error.
It still
'cause that
meets
did-
it.
I know that changed, and it's
That did
100 foot, along with the square, I believe.
It's
Yes,
equal to the
right.
square, so
Yeah, absolutely.
this grid is not accurate, but is there anything else on the grid, maybe we could have staff just take a look to make sure, verify everything meets the regulations? Everything else is good.
Yeah, no, that'll get corrected. You're right, because that probably left over from.
It would be a
engineering.
problem if you only had 84 feet and it's 100, but it looks to me like you took 249 and divided it exactly in two, so it's 124.
Yeah, no, the lots are fantastic.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that the grid is accurate and that it meets our current requirements, not what our requirements were a few years ago. That was my question.
Thank you. Commissioner Francis?
One quick question. In all this, did you address, please add to high-level overflows? Did you ask him
I
that?
did.
I thought so. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Very good. So I'm going to hold this matter open for the next meeting.
Okay, that sounds
Okay?
good. All right.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll call the next item. 2031 Reading Road, re-subdivision application of Alan Gill for 2 lots in a AAA zone.
This might be yours. 'Cause I don't think there's two.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Michael Batola. I'm a licensed land surveyor, licensed professional engineer, here in Connecticut, also a member of the Huntington Company, and our office is here in Fairfield. The application before you is a re-subdivision. Re-subdivision because back in '77, this one big parcel contained 6 acres. This 2 acres was cut out back in '77. Right now, the property consists of just over a 4-acre piece of property. What we'd like to do is put this division line shown on this map, and this subdivision map, and we end up with 2 conforming 2-acre lots. On the northernmost lot is the existing house and several outbuildings. The lot to the south, if this subdivision is approved, we hope to build the additional house, new septic system, a new stormwater system. Back in, I think it was 1990, the existing house put a new septic system in, and unfortunately, it falls south of our proposed lot line revision. So what we propose to do, and I did soil testing, and it was witnessed by the Town of Fairfield Health Department, we propose to put a new septic system in for the house lot, and naturally, we need a new septic system for the proposed house. Each lot would be serviced by a public water. I did a set of drainage computations to show that there is no increase in stormwater runoff due to the new construction. That was submitted, and one of the comments from Laura Pooley was she accepted that. Also did a set of driveway sightline computations. The speed limit on Reading Road is 30 miles an hour. The only place it changes is Dwight School to our south. It's 25 coming to the school each way. My computations for the sightline show I have adequate sightline for 30 mile an hour speed, also a 45 mile an hour speed. Again, those comps were submitted along with my materials and approved by Laura Pooley. She had 2 sets of comments. The earlier comments had roughly 6 items she wanted to see. What I did is revise the drawings and submit them back to the Planning and Zoning Department. Those were reviewed by, again, by Laura Pooley, and her second comments say that she was satisfied with the revisions. The only comment from the Health Department was, and I already knew this, that we needed to put the new septic system in on our side of the property, because back in 1990, it was one 4-acre piece of property. So we've got 2 conforming lots, 2 2-acre conforming lots with an existing house, outbuildings, and we hope to build 1 new house on the southerly proposed lot. Questions? Also, Mr. Gill, who owns the property along with his wife, is here, and if for some reason you need to question him on anything.
Part of the files also appears a request for payment in lieu of open space.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Naturally, the reason being we don't have excess property.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Questions?
Go over all of Laura Pooley's comments that she had come across?
I beg your pardon?
You go through all of Laura Pooley's comments?
Yes, I did. Yep.
Okay.
That was taken care of with the last revision, and again, she's reviewed it, and her last comments came that she's satisfied with them.
I just have to check 2 or 3 of them.
They were relatively minor comments.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any member of the public who wish to be heard on this application? Going once, going twice? Very good. I'll close the public hearing on this item. Next item is 901 Kings Highway, special exception application of Calvin United Church to establish a daycare use in a portion of an existing building in the design commercial district in C zones.
Good evening. I'm David Wojtowicz, architect for J.P. Franz and Associates in Fairfield, and we're here today to propose to reestablish a former daycare that was on this site back in 80s, maybe to 93 when it was, removed or no longer in use. The proposed daycare is for the lower level of the church building that is fronting the Kings Highway East. The existing lower level at church was religious ed at one time when the church was constructed in 1955. This obviously was a church, their older wood structure that was removed. The lower area proposed is approximately 980 square feet. Approximately 35 children would allocate that area, and that's based on a state reg as well for square footage per child. So they probably couldn't exceed that area based on state licensing. The children would be 3 to 5 years old. Instructors are 1 per 10. They're proposing 4 instructors with 4 instructors. That would cover the 40 if they could even get that many children in there. They would also have 2 assistants. So that'd be approximately 41 people in total. The existing parking lot is off Hibiscus where for parent drop-off and pickup, they would be required to park in the parking lot and escort their child or children into the lower level of the church for sign-in and sign-out. Operations of this proposed use is Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 5:30. Parents are also required to provide lunch and snacks for the children or guardian. There would be no cooking on site for this use. The existing parking lot is adequately paved and lit. There'd be no problem at evenings providing proper lighting.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Chairman. I could just, we rejected the original application without prejudice, with the hope that you could come back because they wanted to get their daycare, we thought, up and running before the start of the school year.
Right.
The focus was primarily the vice chairman's concerns raised by, and also by the chairman, that, that there were issues related to the playground and the fence and the proximity to vehicles, So could you, I hate to make you jump,
No
but
problem.
we were okay with all that stuff.
Yeah.
Is it possible you could just get to the
I thought-
nut here and just
Yeah.
talk to us about what's been
Sure.
done to alter the plan so we can help you move ahead?
That was the
Thanks,
next
Ray.
item.
Just,
Right.
sorry, I just,
Yeah, with the
Thanks.
new revised drawings, we did an enlarged area, the playground area, where the concerns were. And so I highlighted the fenced area now, the proposed area. There'd be 6-foot screen fencing on the property around the perimeter, and on the property side, it's a 4-foot chain link for visibility of the children in that playground area. They would be supervised. The area of the playground meets the requirements for state licensing for 2 shifts of children, approximately 18 at a time, and they would do 2 shifts. There was an encroachment on the... Right, state, that's the off-ramp of exit 24. There is a steel guardrail along that whole off-ramp, approximately 20 feet to 40 feet away from our property. There was a shed encroachment that will be removed, and I think presently right now it has been removed. It wasn't in use The client felt it shouldn't be over the line. I believe as of today, it is gone. The surveyor will give us benchmarks for where the property is so we can adequately locate the fencing inside the property. So that's all reflected in the new application.
Right.
So is it a 6-foot fence that'll be
Yeah,
there?
stockade.
Stockade fence, 6 feet tall between a child and being able to get into that
And it's
that
heavily
area.
wooded
And it's wood-
presently.
Right, but the point is, they're gonna be inside a 6-foot stockaded fence on those sides with a 4-foot see-through fence where the teachers can see them and the minders
Correct.
can see.
And
Right.
the
Okay.
parents from the
Parents.
parking lot,
Right.
and that's a chain link, so you can see
Right.
from the property side into that area.
But the kiddies won't be able to look through the back to see that enticing,
No, they can't look
you know,
to the
forest on the
commercial.
way to the highway exit. Okay, great.
Correct.
Awesome.
And they,
Great.
so,
So, the fence that we're talking about is now going to be relocated onto your property?
correct, it was attached to the state fence, which is there, which is approximately 5 to 6 feet off our property, and they attached the fence to that, not knowing that wasn't the property line.
Sure.
So we are going to relocate that fence to inside, and once again, it doesn't reduce the playground area to
Right.
any restrictions that would hinder our,
No, that's great.
Area.
So the shed is now, you know,
It is
gone,
gone.
non-encroaching.
I drove by the other day.
fence is going to be moved into, you know, your property line.
correct.
Okay. Were there any other changes to the plan? I don't think we asked for any others.
No, those were the basics. The interior floor plan I have here, that did not change at all.
Okay.
You know, we did meet
One question.
with most departments.
Terrific.
What's the blue and red thing on, because it's not on
Oh,
our
these
plan.
are just diagrammatic playground, you know, it is a playground area.
Yeah,
The
sure.
state's gonna require some means of playground equipment for the children under the state license,
Okay.
and that would be mandated through them.
Okay.
If there's
Does anyone
any-
else have
The
any
client is here
other
if
questions?
for some reason there's any specific questions for them.
Anyone? No? Good. Excellent. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Any member of the public wish to be heard on this application? Going once, going twice? Very good. I'll close the public hearing on this app.
Thank you very much.
Next item is 226 Old Post Road, special permit application of Southport AC LLC pertaining to additions and renovations in an existing indoor recreational facility and design industrial district.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I'm here tonight representing the applicant and owner, Southport AC LLC. With me are representatives of that entity, Mr. Steve Wise and Mr. Greg Minaturian, who are seated back there. The property is located, as the call indicates, 213, 226, and 233 Old Post Road. It is in the Design Industrial District. You know it well. It's been, for many decades, been utilized as an indoor recreational facility, many, many decades, as is explicitly permitted in the zone under Section 21.2.10. For many years, as you know, this utilization involved the Southport Racket Club and most recently the Gym Fitness Center. I'm very, very excited about this application, as I hope you will be as well. It embodies a number of components that I think are really, really very positive for the village of Southport and for our community as a whole. First of all, as we'll talk about, and you can see my assistants setting up here in the interest of time, I hope they're not distracting you. It's the continued utilization of this property, consistent as it has been for many decades, for this type of indoor recreational use, which I think everybody would agree has been beneficial, harmonious, and created a certain vitality and ambiance in the town in general and Southport in particular. So it's a good thing, I believe, that this particular facility, which has anchored and served the community and the village very well, is not going to be disturbed. The use is not going to be changed. The second thing that I think is very important, and we'll talk about tonight, is the introduction into our community of Equinox. And I'll introduce them and tell you a few things about them in a moment. But we believe that their experience and reputation and commitment in terms of fitness opportunities will enhance significantly the programs and services that are provided to residents. The third thing that I think is very, very important that we're going to talk about tonight is the enhancement of the physical facility itself under the artful eye of Roger Farris and partners, Mr. Michael Scott, who's here, and Mr. Roger Farris, who's here. So we think there's a significant aesthetic upgrade to the facility. And the other thing that's really important to me, as you all are, as cheerleaders for this community, as we well should be, is to see the kind of investment, to see the kind of opportunity to refurbish such a landmark-type location in the village, and to do it by bringing in, as we're going to talk about in a minute, probably one of the world's, certainly the nation's, most accomplished and respected operators of these types of facilities, to open their third facility here in Connecticut, one now in Greenwich, one now in Darien, and soon, with your approval, one in Southport. So that's my excitement. That's why I got a lot of goosebumps over this application. But let's talk about the specifics. The existing building is 21,550 square feet. The proposal that you're going to hear about tonight seeks to expand the facility, and I want to be clear about these numbers so you're not be confused, and I laid them out in my statement of use, to a gross square footage of 30,657 square feet, so as to accommodate the occupancy of the new facility by Equinox, who is, as I said, the national leader in this type of high-performance lifestyle and fitness training. I would want to tell you that with us here tonight from Equinox, I have Amanda Potter, who's the Director of Planning for the company, and Tim Palinaccia, I hope I pronounced that correct, who is our Area Manager for Westchester and Connecticut. The square footage that I just talked about is the pure calculation of floor area ratio, FAR. And that does include in this particular plan, because of the way FAR is defined, certain areas of open air space, if you will, because as you'll hear in a minute from Michael Scott, the addition between two floors does have a certain atrium area to it that is open. And we met with Mr. Wendt to determine, what would be the calculable, usable square footage here, which was important for you to know, and of course for the parking calculation, which we'll discuss in a minute. So the usable square footage, after you factor out that second-story atrium, is 28,473 square feet.
So before you, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
and I apologize for interrupting, but
I said a question, just something you just said, it's not to throw you off. You said the existing square footage is 21,000?
The existing square footage is 21,550.
And I just said, why is that different from, in the code enforcement minutes, it says that the survey indicates the building size to be 16,886 square feet, so it had it increased by
We
about 13,000.
went back and we recalculated, the original numbers at the code map period was based upon certain material from the assessors, but we wanted to be accurate.
Okay.
So we did a measurement. That's the correct number.
So the correct number is
The correct number is 21,550 square feet.
Okay.
The gross square footage on an FAR basis is 30,657. But when you calculate the usable square footage after taking out that open air space that you'll see and hear about when we make the architectural presentation, the actual usable square footage after the renovation and the addition will be 28,473 square feet. So the addition, giving you the last of the numbers, constitutes 6,923 square feet of usable space. Everything that we're doing here is in compliance with the zoning regulations. Indeed, we are actually eliminating certain aspects of nonconformity. We're basically building within the footprint of the existing building, but we are eliminating certain encroachments into the setback that currently exists, as you'll see on the plans. Obviously, and excitedly, as you'll see, part of this will involve a complete renovation and transformation, not only of the exterior structure, but also a major internal upgrade to provide the kind of services and amenities that Equinox requires. Let me talk to you a little bit about Equinox. This is their third facility in Fairfield County. one in Greenwich, one in Darien. We believe very strongly that what we're going to share with you tonight, and I hope a very focused presentation, you'll agree that this will not only preserve an existing use that has served the neighborhood and the community well, but it's going to really create a new community hub in this already vibrant Southport area. We have met with our abutters. I have a letter tonight to present to you from one of the abutters, and I will do that now as long as I mention it. While I'm doing that or passing it out to you, I'm also authorized by Mr. Tom Cabrillo, the owner, along with others, pass these down, of the Grey Goose, to express his absolute enthusiasm with regard to what we're proposing here. The letter that you're receiving now comes from our neighbor across the street, the operation of the hotel and the restaurant, and our neighbors have been very, very excited about what we propose to do. We've also had a meeting with representatives of Sasquatch to acquaint them with our proposal and answer any questions that they may have. But Equinox, as you may know, and you probably did from reading my statement, really provides the top of the line and unparalleled experience, service, and programs in this type of facility. They have over 80 facilities of this type worldwide. As I said, 3 in Connecticut. I detail at great length in my statement the kind of offerings that we make in terms of cardio and strength training, the studios that we dedicate for yoga, Pilates, cycling, and the like. We're going to have a spa here that'll feature a menu of offerings that's going to give everybody a chance to, as I put in my statement, to be rejuvenated and pampered. I like the sound of that. We're going to be a kids club, which we think is a nice component. And as you'll see from the interior floor plans, we're going to have lounge areas so that our members can gather and utilize it, as I said, as a place not only to work out, but to sit, to socialize, to hold meetings and the like. So this will join the 80 full-service clubs that run from New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Miami, Boston, Texas, Washington, London, and Toronto. And they're coming here to Southport, which I think says a lot about our community, about its attractiveness, and certainly the village of Southport as well. So, more specifics before I introduce our presenters. The hours of operation, as I put in the statement, will be Monday through Thursday, 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., Friday, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Sunday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. With me here tonight is obviously Roger Ferris of Roger Ferris & Partner, Michael Scott, who you'll be hearing from, he's waving from behind there. They, I think, have done an exceptional job, and we'll review that with you momentarily, including a very exciting aesthetic upgrade to the building's exterior, which we think is going to have a very positive impact on the surrounding area. You'll hear from Michael, too, about our lighting plan. We've obviously submitted a photometrics analysis. The lighting is subdued, it's functional, but it's low-key. Bill Kenny is here. He's going to review with you the landscaping plan that we've produced. We've done that and worked in conjunction and collaboration with your tree warden to come up with a landscaping plan that's going to be a further visual enhancement to the site, which I think would benefit from such visual enhancement if you look at existing conditions. Mike Galante is here. Galante is here from Frederick P. Clark and Associates. He's provided a traffic analysis that's been submitted. He'll briefly review the methodology and his findings there, but we're pleased that they do confirm that there's not any significant traffic impact associated with the new facility. The net increase in trips here during the weekday morning, weekday and afternoon mid-periods is very minimal. Interesting to note that when the facility was functioning well some years ago, they had variations between 2,200 and 2,300 members. For a lot of reasons, that fell off significantly. And one of the things that I think is, as I said, very beneficial here is that this facility as a use could be saved, an indoor recreation facility. Because there's a lot of other uses that you could be contemplating here and you'd have to be dealing with, and I like the harmonious, seamless, continual nature of this. The point being, though, on the traffic side, our business plan will never exceed the kind of membership at its peak that the facility, when it was functioning effectively 6, 7, 8 years ago, a decade ago, was. If we can achieve a membership that gets us back up to that level, we'll be very, very, very excited.
You know, and it's an interesting point. I don't know the answer to this question. What were those numbers? What are the membership numbers of the gym currently? And like, has it declined? It's suffered?
Yeah, the answer is, Steve, would you want to address that? I mean, at its
I'm just
peak,
curious.
before the gym, they were doing, at their best, 2,200 to 2,300 members.
Oh.
Before the gym. Now, Steve, do we know what that would be?
It's fallen off 20 to 30% from those levels, and certainly as we're here before you tonight, in advance of today, it's falling off further and further. So those numbers at the height, 2,200, 2,300, take off 20 to 30% from that space.
Okay.
Okay. But Michael will go through all that with you. The last thing before I do start the presentation, which we're going to, as I say, try to keep focused and brief in courtesy to your time, let me talk about parking, because that's, again, numbers. Currently, the site at 2260 Post Road, where the building is, has 46 parking spaces. The two properties across the street, which are part of this and always have been, have a total of 96 spaces. So the parking that's always been dedicated and that we're not going to change here to this facility is 142 spaces. I spent a lot of time with Mr. Wendt at the outset of this, and we went through all the historic files going back to, I guess, Jim, the early 1980s, when the original approval for the Racket Club, and then the additions that were put on, and so on and so forth. We were able to confirm, and staff will confirm for you, and I put in the narrative, that based upon those previous approvals and the parking regulations then in effect, the parking required for the existing facility is 76 spaces. So we have, with the building standing as it is today, an excess of 66 spaces. Obviously, the 6,923 square feet of addition has to comply with the current regulations. And if you do that math, it yields a requirement that we would have to provide an additional 35 spaces.
So you're basing the analysis on the pre-existing building with parking plus the addition under current new regulations,
Correct.
not an evaluation of the overall building under new regulations?
Correct. Just as
what would the parking be, what would it be required under today's regulations?
Well, if you have, you'd have to do, who's ever got the calculator, but it's 28,000 square feet divided by 200. Drum roll.
5 times
28,000 is the usual, the usable square footage of the entire facility, existing and the addition.
28,000 and 1 for 200 is 140 spaces.
Okay, and we have 142 spaces. So, but I just wanted you to understand how the numbers were based, because if you follow, the way we've always done it in town, as you know, is if you have an existing building and you want to put an addition onto it, you calculate the parking requirement for the existing building based upon what was then in effect and what was required. And in this case, that would be 76 spaces. Then you take the new spare footage and you apply the current regs to it. And if you did that here, for the 6,923 square feet, you would require an additional 35 spaces, which means with 142 spaces on site, you'd still have 31 to the good. But
Yeah.
the chairman provides another, you can look at it,
You've got the, you meet the minimum requirements whether you calculate it either
do.
way.
We do.
And the reason I ask is because my review of this is that we're building a new facility. I mean, you're not demolishing the existing building in terms of the foundation, but, I mean, you're not just building an addition on this building.
It's a substantial renovation, and we'll go through that in terms of how the building's going to be done. But to the extent that that is the perspective, your analysis is good, because we do have 142 spaces on site, so we would meet the requirements. Okay. Now, let me get to the people that really matter. Michael Scott of Roger Ferris and Partners, and of course Roger's here as well, is going to take you briefly through our site plan and our architectural plans and our lighting plan. I would point out that Mike Bertula, who you heard from before, is in attendance. Mike did the site engineering with regard to the application. You do have in your file an email memo from Laura Pooley dated June 29, and Laura has confirmed that all aspects of the site engineering as prepared by Mike have been complied with, and she has approved. He is here should you have any questions about the site engineering, but it has been reviewed by the engineering department. They've approved it. So let me first call on Michael Scott, who will walk you through the architectural plans. He and the other folks who are going to present will be referring to some boards, but as is our habit, to make life easier for you, I've got copies.
Good evening, Michael Scout, Roger Ferris and Partners, Westport, Connecticut. John's going to return the favor of bustling around while I'm talking.
The same exhibits you'll be seeing reference to. They'll just be easier for you to see. You can take them home.
So, Attorney Fallon did a great job teeing up the discussion. Just to remind you of the location that we're discussing, we're looking at these two parcels, at Ridge, Old Coast Road. This is Reynolds Drive, this is Post Road, this is 95. This is the existing gym at Southport, which was built originally as the Southport Racket Club. What we're looking at is substantial renovation and addition, a third floor addition to the project, improving the facility and updating the building fire, energy, and accessibility codes. We've included some photos of the immediate surroundings. You can also see from the aerial that the area retains a lot of the qualities of its industrial past. But it is a neighborhood in transition. The gym has been here since at least for decades. It is a two-story structure set deep in the northerly parcel, tight against Reynolds and Coast Road. Originally conceived as a racket club, squash is a use that doesn't need a lot of windows and in fact rejects a lot of windows. So this is a two-story brick, rough, I would say a large muscled building that doesn't take advantage of a lot of fenestration or engagement in the entrance to your village. This is an existing site plan. We've rotated it 90 degrees. So this is Old Post Road here, and this would be Post Road here. You can see that essentially what we are doing is we are building on the existing footprint. We're going to reuse many of the existing exterior walls and as much of the interior structure as practicable. We will reinforce the roof and insert a new third floor into the building here. To Attorney Fallon's comments, we are removing some of the encroachments into this rear setback, and in doing so, we are also squaring up this side of the building in this area. So we're more or less balancing out the current coverage on the site. The additions that we are making here conform with the setbacks.
If I could ask you a question about the third floor addition?
Yes.
I'm looking at the rendering here, and it's very pretty. There's only, it looks like one person doing a karate kick or something maybe in one. Were you given any kind of mission as to what this facility would hold? I mean, what this space in the facility would hold? This looks, all I'm seeing is basically trees through that.
but I'm wondering if instead it's going to have, rows of, cardio machines or something where people are going to be pressed right up against that window. In urban settings, not Equinox, but where there's glassed in, you walk by and there's people right up against a row on bikes or treadmills or whatever. It's deep in the property is deep in there, but were you given a mission as to what's going to be in there? Were you told what was going to be? Or if not you, maybe somebody at the...
We can go through the floor plans. There is a mixture of spaces, either fitness educational spaces
Right.
or open floor cardio and weight rooms.
And we say open floor cardio, is that machines?
Yeah, those would be a combination of machines and equipment.
So when I'm looking at this is reconstructed on the third floor, if I look up at it, I'm going to see folks on different kinds of things, bicycles or spinning machines, whatever they call them, and treadmills, things like that, by the window. Is that correct?
Well,
you can tell me.
when I get to the
Okay,
floor
great. I
plans,
just want to try to
we
understand
can run through that.
how it's
Yeah.
going to be purposed.
No, absolutely.
And how it'll look as a result.
Yes, okay. Well, to your point with the exterior rendering, if you look, what we are doing here is, this view is from Old Post Road. This is the existing structure with its heavy musculature. And what we have done here is we're retaining the two-story structure here. Because the function is changing, we are opening up some of the masonry to bring some engagement into the spaces beyond. And then the third floor is treated as a recessive piece that is stepped back from the entire perimeter, so it reads as a...
How far back is that about?
It's at least 10 feet.
Oh, okay.
Right. And so there is a read of the original structure here, and then a new addition here.
So this is a one-to-one comparison, present and future.
Yes.
Wow, I like it.
The existing masonry wall, which doesn't have insulation, will receive an exterior layer of insulation, and then this is a rain screen over top of it to help us bring this up to contemporary energy codes. This is a view from Post Road on your way going into Fairfield. Similarly, you can see here the original two-story piece here with the third floor addition put here. So this would be the new line of the third floor level with a roof put on top of that. Again, where the use has changed and we're allowed to open up this facade, we'll open up the facade to get some better engagement with the surrounding area. This is good mid-80s curtain wall glass, pretty dark and foreboding. We hope to do something a good bit better here. We're taking this divided light approach from the warehouse, the adjacent warehouses along the railroad tracks to create the filigree of the fine lines here that is pretty much absent in this. Good design in the 80s.
Kind of an oxymoron, but question for you. What about signage? Were you asked to, were you doing this, was there any effort to kind of get a sense of where the signage would appear, something in your design, maybe that wasn't part of your brief, I don't know.
We have some ideas, but
Okay,
it's
but
not
there's nothing in the
something that we're
rendering?
looking to present to you tonight. We'll come back
with
with
a plan?
with a signage plan. So to your point about the plans. So the first floor, really, trying to reuse as much of the structure as we can. The current building has a long main street down the middle of it that all the racket courts used to face onto. We're essentially building on that. We're trying to work with the existing spine of the building and not do such radical surgery on these lower floors. So these are the common spaces, the locker rooms, and business offices, a small cafe for patron use only, and the daycare facility here. There is a large open stair that has an address on this spine. Then as you move up the floor here, we have some of the program rooms towards the back, and then these are the open floor areas. The important thing to understand about the end users such as Equinox is they don't pack in the equipment quite like a normative fitness club that you may be used to. And we'll see this more on the third floor, but there is this idea that there's a delivery of a concierge service here of a fitness program. So while these drawings don't depict the actual layout of equipment, we have gone through and done a tentative equipment layout with the aisles to keep them off the wall. You're not going to be looking at, you know, the back end of a Nautilus machine when you look through the door.
Excellent, thanks.
It's demonstrated perhaps most on the third floor here, where we have a few program rooms, but because of the upper story, the loft of this third floor addition, it actually opens up some green terraces on the third floor that will become an exterior space with green roofing on it. Right now, we do not contemplate that they will use that as program space. It's more of a visual amenity for the patrons on the third floor. That will also keep the equipment off the wall. You're not going to plant a green roof and then push a row of exercise bicycles right up against the window.
Do you ever like plant, you know, flowers and trees or bushes on those terraces, or is it just when you say green, you mean like grass?
It's more in this vein than in this vein. I don't think at this time they're contemplating deep planters that would a larger, more substantial plant would require. It's somewhere in between sedum and some basic grasses up there.
Neat.
I wanted to walk through the elevations very quickly. I mean, I believe that the renderings depict the intention that what we're doing to this building, we're doing all the way around. We're not just putting a front face on it and a back face on it. These elevations deviate slightly from what was submitted as part of the application, in that we are showing a very short equipment screen on the roof. The rooftop equipment that's in our application, I want to be very clear, does meet your zoning regulation for height, setback, and coverage. However, if this commission felt strongly about the necessity of a screen, we wanted to demonstrate that you can screen it. We have this building modeled in 3D in the office. We've spun it around. We've walked all the way around it. We don't believe either the screen or the equipment will be visible from any ground plane vantage point. However, if the commission again felt strongly about above ground plane, say from adjacent neighbors, and necessity to screen it, we wanted to show you with some degree of confidence that it is achievable and could fit with the nature of this renovation project. Okay?
So, just to stay on that for just a second, then, in the packet you just gave us that doesn't show the screen, we can also assume that the mechanical equipment is applied. And since we can't see it in these elevations, you're not going to be able to see it. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm just going to touch briefly on lighting before I hand it over to Bill Kenny. In the formal application packet, there is a whole lighting sheet that shows you the type of fixtures, the location, and a foot candle calculation. Essentially, the idea is to use the LEDs required to get the safety and appearance of the parking lots in the surrounding area up to contemporary standards, but not to overlight the facility, and to ensure that there is no spillover over the property line. I think that's demonstrated in the lighting plan. I didn't put it on the board because the numbers are so small we could blow it up to the size of there and still not be able to read it. But if there's specific questions about it, there are taller fixtures here and down the center spine, and then some low bollards adjacent to the building, and finally some recessed lighting back here along the egress walk out to Mendel Drive.
Right. So that was one of the comments of the police review, was that the lighting was pretty marginal. The other comment from police was that the crosswalk in front is not usable, and that it was encouraged to be reconstructed and needs sidewalks. Can you just talk a little bit about how that has been improved, that situation?
Yeah, I'll jump.
If you had that in another part of your presentation, I'm sorry to have,
Well, it's a good segue to Bill Kenny, actually.
Okay.
I'd love to answer it, but we brought him along too. The comments that we received from the town, I believe that we made a revision and resubmitted it for the packet that's part of public record now. So we're glad to point them out exactly where they are on the drawings, but we believe that we've addressed them. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good evening, Bill Kenny, principal of William Kenny Associates here in Fairfield, a registered landscape architect and ecologist. We were retained to help with the planting plan. There, just some quick overview things. There's a substantial amount of significant trees along the perimeter of the property and the perimeter of the parking lot. We're going to be really working with those, preserving those trees. There's about 15 trees on or immediately adjacent to the property, within a few feet of the property. And then basically just enhancing that planting, supplementing it, including 4 new shade trees along the street, and I think that was one comment from that staff review.
Tree warden?
Yes, and I met with the tree warden, Jeff Minder, out at the property, and we talked about street trees on both sides of the street. There are utility lines on the north side, and due to that, and due to some existing trees that already exist, it was agreed that we just keep the existing trees on that side and add the taller shade trees. We're using autumn blaze maples, which is a hybrid between silver maple and red maple on the south side. So there's 4 new trees there. And also, we'll go right into that discussion about the crosswalk and what we are showing. Sure.
Mr. Kenny, I guess it's the parking, the separate parking spot.
Yes.
There's a note along the bottom there, it says existing tree to be removed typical. Is that indicating that symbol is saying all those types of trees where it's just a line, an outline of the tree is coming out?
No.
All right. That looks like a lot of trees. That's why I wasn't sure.
It's referring to, it's pointing.
Just to the left of
trees
it?
to be removed do not have a canopy. So if you look on the legend in the bottom left-hand corner of the
Oh, I see,
drawing,
so it has, whatever has just like the,
just the
trunk
trunk.
and an X through it is
Right.
what's coming out. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I had another question about trees.
Sure.
So our regulations require shade trees in the parking lot. You want to talk about that now?
Sure.
Yeah, obviously, this is an existing parking lot serving an existing facility. The addition is 6,900 square feet. The existing facility is 21,000, whatever. We're not doing anything with the parking lot, and as our earlier dialogue confirmed, however you analyze parking requirements, the existing lot is grandfathered, so we're not doing anything with it. What we tried to do in working with Bill and the tree warden, however, is to enhance the parking lot ambiance through additional trees, without engaging in, reconstruction of a parking lot, including 14 shade trees, which we just can't do. And accommodate the parking.
Yeah. And I don't have the lighting plan in front of me, but I seem to remember the other gentleman pointing to lighting in the parking lot, right?
Michael, could you focus on the lighting in the parking lot?
So there's some holes in the existing planting beds along the side.
Right.
And we've inserted a few along the common curves.
In the interior of the lot, right?
To the interior of the lot.
Yeah. So does that mean that you're actually, sort of digging up to lay a conduit to get the electric to the light fixture that's in the common area?
We'll have to trench to get a conduit into that.
Right? I mean, and so the trench is gonna have to be dug, I don't know, how many feet wide, right?
The conduit's that big.
That big? That's it? You sure? Yeah, there's no way to accommodate any shade trees in this lot at all?
What about that corner? What about that one corner? Could you put one in that upper left corner? Looks like a pretty big area over there.
I mean, we can examine that. I mean, our goal is to, both my client and Equinox are making a very substantial investment.
Oh, I know.
We want, I mean, it's confirmatory. So we want it to be as beautiful as you do too. We are working, however, in the confines of an existing facility, an existing whatever. I don't know, Bill, would you want to address whether there's opportunity for...
So I understand your argument, and I really do. And this is intended to be constructive.
Right.
There are only certain points in time where we have the ability and the wherewithal to make the improvements of the type and quality that we're talking about here, okay? Once this is all done, nobody's going to touch this parking lot for another 10, 20, 30, 40 years, okay? There was a reason that we amended our codes to require shade trees in the parking lots, because we all thought that it was valuable, beneficial, made an impact on our community, and that we all thought it was a really good thing. So if you're digging conduit to put in trenches, to put electricity in the parking lot, to put up some, light poles, which I think is appropriate and is recommended, and I think we ought to look at trying to find some spaces to put in some shade trees. It's a big parking lot.
You got no argument from us.
All right.
And we're,
Commissioner Barris?
Yeah, I would also, I'm just not understanding the full we're trying to preserve a lot of existing trees, and we could read our regs a number of ways, and I understand Mr. Fudge, he can't put in 14 for the 140, but...
We are adding further.
But my interpretation of regs at a minimum, and I'm not saying this is it, for the 35 spaces that you're adding, we need at least 4 brand-new shade trees, or shade trees.
Well, we're not adding spaces, we are adding required parking, I think is what
Adding
we
required
have
parking.
76 spaces we require for the
Okay.
existing facility. The
Submit-
6,900 square foot addition yields a parking required of 35 spaces, so
Yeah.
you're saying, well, all right, find me 4 trees.
I'm not sure I'm negotiating that, I'm just saying,
No,
can you, yeah.
And I think, if I'm understanding it correctly, we're not restriping. There are 142 existing
No.
spaces.
Exactly right.
You've got more than required parking for the current use.
We do.
And the renovation, or, the ultimate square footage, whether you calculate it under a grandfathered provision or under, the total usable space, you've got enough parking, either way, right? So, I get it, we'll talk about it. I don't know that I disagree with you.
And I don't disagree with you.
And I'm talking about, as a practical matter, for the beautification of our town, nobody's gonna touch this parking lot for decades.
I think what you want us to do, I think we have a mutual goal, is ensuring that taking advantage of this generational opportunity, we enhance this site to the fullest extent possible.
Yes.
We're all in agreement on that. The one thing we don't want to do, because we don't think it's in our interest, we don't think it's in the village's interest, we don't think it's in anybody's interest, we don't want to lose parking. We recognize that we do have
I hear you.
excess parking, but there's a certain security in having
Yeah.
excess parking.
And in the Stop and Shop shopping plaza, there are shade trees built into the parking lot.
Right.
Using, a small area, which simply results in a slightly shortened parking space
Right.
every so often, okay?
Right.
And I don't think they need to be that big.
No,
frankly.
there's no argument here from us. And I think, I'm drawing a blank.
Where are you gonna
and
put the
you guys
light
remember,
fixture?
we had a very similar, I don't mean to digress from the people, we had a very similar discussion. I'm trying to think what the application was.
I think it was Bright Beginnings.
Was it Bright Beginnings?
It might have been.
Yeah, maybe
Might
it
have
was. And I think that worked out well.
Yeah.
So, and I think, and were you involved in that? Well, it would have worked out better if Bill was involved. But, so yes, what I would like to do, without being presumptuous, is have you consider, assuming we can close the hearing tonight, which we'd like because there's a great deal of
Yeah, it
pressure.
doesn't look like you got too many members of the public
No,
here who are
this
going to
is
be
all our
jumping and
community.
shouting at you. Yeah.
So, if there's some way you can consider or we can work with staff, or you can provide a condition, we are certainly absolutely unopposed using Bill's skills to try to enhance further parking lot trees. And as you point out, there are examples of how we can do that, enhance it aesthetically without jeopardizing spaces.
Yeah.
And we're all on the same page.
Okay.
Attorney Tom, how are these parking lot lights gonna be in the parking lot? Are they gonna be on concrete bollards? What's the plan here? A parking spot's gonna be interfered with,
Mr. Scott?
we've seen that sometimes too.
Yeah, so again, to your point, those center of the aisles and the triangular geometry creates these little pockets where we could get a pole, and then you have to protect the pole with bollards and with a good sturdy base.
Without interfering in each parking spot, correct?
That's right,
Okay.
that's right.
I just don't want, we've had some parking lots where we have a light and we light that spot because of the light. Or it's short too much. Okay.
And I just, by the way, talked to my client, and we're totally on board with the conversation we just had. And we'll put Bill to work on that.
Thank
You have other? That's it?
I have one question.
Commissioner Mack.
Just looking at the photos you so kindly provided, I guess it's showing the Post Road elevation where which is like effectively the back of the building. It looks like cars are parked there. I don't recall if there's another facility beyond that, or is that staff parking back there right now? Is there any way to restrict what that is? Is it included in the number? Yeah, that one only shows a couple, but there's another picture from a slightly different angle. I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars in there right now.
Well, that's really a service yard back there. There are no approved spots back there.
The answer to the question is,
They're all
they shouldn't
legal.
be parked there.
Yeah, right.
It's not part of our plan,
Right.
but there will be parking.
I think that was the photography crew that parked there just to take the photo.
Good answer.
That would sort of be counterproductive to what we're trying to aesthetically achieve.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Galante will summarize for you the findings of his.
I did.
Good evening, Mike Galante, principal of Frederick Clark Associates, also located here in Fairfield. I have a report that's dated August of this year, 2016, which has lots of tables, charts, figures, and appendices. What I'm going to try to do tonight is keep it under an hour and just summarize it. But I'm going to give you the bottom line first and then backtrack a little bit. Sorry?
Seems like an insignificant amount of time.
This development is an existing fitness center, if you will. It's being modified and expanded, so we're adding space. It's operating under capacity today, so we're accounting for that in our analysis. At the end of the process and up to what the impact is, we're adding anywhere from 27 to 37 trips to the road system during the 3 different peak hours. So that's the bottom line. I want you to understand, after a while, I show you a lot of numbers, and I'm going to cut out some of it just to kind
And
of
what was
keep
the
it
number? What was the number? How many?
27 up to 37 trips during any one peak hour.
When you say it's under capacity, when you say it's operating 8%, you accounted for it, so you start with the baseline of you bump your numbers from 80 to 100 and then add
Correct.
the amount to get to your 27 to 36.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Correct. And I'm going to run through some of the charts just to kind of summarize the process that we went through. Everything I have on the boards behind me is in the report itself, so nothing's new. Just for reference purposes, the study area is Old Post Road, from either side of the turnpike overpass, if you will. The driveways to the site, 2 driveways in front of the site itself into that parking lot, 3 driveways across the street into that parking lot, and then, of course, the intersection at Pequot Avenue in the center of the village or the business district. Just as a reference, this is figure 4 from the report itself, and I'm just showing the morning peak hour. We did our counts April and May of this year. Schools were open, weather was good, we avoided any holidays, certainly spring break from school, and we completed our traffic counts at all of the intersections that I just mentioned. We focused on the morning peak from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. to capture the early person going into the fitness center itself. Again in the afternoon during the week from 4 to 6 p.m. and identify the peak hour within that time period. And on Saturday morning from 8 a.m. to noon, and then identify that peak hour. Peak hours during the week for the road and the site itself actually was 8 to 9 a.m. In the afternoon, it was 4:45 to 5:40 p.m., and on Saturday, it was 11 a.m. to noon. Those are the peak volumes, and that became the baseline for our traffic study, so we always used a higher volume, higher volumes, as you know. This just simply shows the intersections. And just quickly, some of the volumes on the roads. This is Table 1 from the report. Old Post Road, pretty much along the site frontage. In the morning, had 170 vehicles two-way. In the afternoon, 226 vehicles two-way, and on Saturday, 261 vehicles. And if you look at the overall volumes and the patterns, the afternoon weekdays, typically the higher volumes out of the 3 time periods. In our traffic counting program, we actually counted at the Darien Equinox, which we actually did years ago, which I guess was the first one in Connecticut. We also have done 1 or 2 on Long Island over the years. But we conducted actual traffic counts at that facility. We did a comparison of the ITE trip generation rates, and we actually counted at this existing facility, which is not Equinox today. Big picture, the patterns in Darien are different from Southport. For example, Southport, this facility is busier in the morning. Darien's busier in the afternoon, and on Saturday they're similar. Southport was actually a little bit higher.
84, 144, 138 in Darien, so low in the morning.
So then if you compare it to ITE trip generation rates, straight from the book for a fitness center or a health facility, the numbers we actually counted are higher. So of course we use the volumes from the higher use, which is Darien and actually Southport. And this is Table 3 from the report, and I know you can't see it from there, but essentially, if you adjust the Southport facility with that 20% decrease or membership, if you will, or activity, it'll generate 117, 100, and 133 as far as vehicle trips during a peak hour. Yes?
Were the counts so you just said that the counts actual at the gym in Southport were higher than the ITE?
Yes.
And were those counts done during the peak of the membership or in the decline of the membership?
When it was about 20% below the maximum utilization. So
So-
we put that traffic back in.
You put the 20% back in?
Absolutely.
That's what Commissioner Kennelly was asking you?
Yeah.
Got it. Sorry. I didn't understand what you were talking
No,
about.
so we put that traffic back in, and
Got
that
it.
equates to about 20 or 25 trips during each peak hour. So that traffic is put back into the mix.
That's the current, I'm sorry, that's the current percent occupancy on that thing, says 80%, so.
Yes.
The adjustment is the additional
Yeah, at the
20%.
time of the counts, it was about 20% lower than the full capacity, if you will, of the facility.
Okay.
Table 4 is just simply an easier table to read, it's bigger. But in essence, when you do a comparison between the existing facility, the Darien facility, the ITE trip generates, and what we expect at this facility with the 20% put back into the mix, we're generating about another 31, 27, and 37 trips during the peak hours. That's where I get the 27 to 37 trips that we're adding to the roadway system during the peak hours. The essence of the analysis is with that additional traffic and without that additional traffic,
and what is the impact. And I'm going to show a table that you can't see from there, but it's table 6 in the report. It summarizes levels of service and so on for all the intersections for the 3 different peak hours, and it's the same table you've seen in every report we do, but the right columns are the columns you need to look at, which is the impact of this development. And essentially what it says is that these intersections, which are all stop sign control, continue to operate at levels of service A and B, which is very acceptable levels in the traffic engineering world. Nothing changes. We do go from A to B in a couple locations, but if you look at the increase in traffic on any one of these approaches or intersections as a whole, they're all under a half a second increase in delay, typically 0.1, 0.2 seconds of increase in delay. So I can stand here tonight and say that that's an insignificant impact. And as far as that analysis and impact to the road system, we don't recommend or need any types of mitigation, modification to traffic control, change in pavement markings, change in driveway locations, how they operate and so on. And I'm obviously making this a shorter presentation, but as a whole, we've covered all the bases. We looked at 3 different peak hours. We looked at accidents, which there were no accidents except at Rennell Drive. There were 2 accidents over a 3-year period. All of the other intersections had 0 accidents over a 3-year period. Our traffic volumes account for the restaurants, the hotel, the fitness center as it is today. And I'll show one last table. Because I can't go home without showing this table. This table is 5 in the report, which summarizes the increase in traffic for you, Mr. Chairman, and we do it, but it gives you a summary of what is the increase in traffic on the roads, and it gives you percentages, and in essence, during the weekday morning, it ranges from 1.75% increase to just over 5%, and the 5% may sound high, but it's an increase of 19 vehicles at a particular intersection. If you look at the intersection at Pequot Avenue in the center of the business district, I think the highest number is 12 vehicles as far as an increase. During the afternoon, it's anywhere from 1.5 to 3% increase, and on Saturday, it's a high of about 4.5% increase. But I only mentioned that the volume and the increase, the volumes are quite low. The percentages sound a little bit high, although it's not quite high from a traffic perspective, because the results of the analyses show really no change in operational characteristics of all of these intersections. That's a quick and abbreviated summary of a very detailed traffic report, but it summarizes all the steps that we normally go through to give you comfort as far as what the impact is and what mitigation is if we need any. In this case, we don't need any mitigation, and I feel quite comfortable with that statement.
Thanks.
Yes?
You mentioned something in your report that I forgot to ask Mr. Fallon about before, but say that the Grey Goose and the gym share the parking lot right now.
Yes.
And I mean, I know that to be the fact. I mean, the
Yes.
parking lot right now, that parking lot is empty most of the time.
The parking lot across the street from the vicinity.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, I mean,
Yes.
it's used, clearly, people
Yeah.
either have to, because the lot at the gym, on the gym side is always packed, and it does need additional parking,
But there are different peaks and different characteristics, so shared parking makes sense in this
So
case.
that's my question, is whether there's an official agreement, an official shared something?
Yeah, Mr. Wise will address that. That's the microphone.
Again, for the record, Steve Wise, there has been an agreement that's been formalized in writing that goes back, I don't know how long, certainly several years at a minimum, and it does talk about a shared usage, as Mr. Galante said, in terms of when they pulse, when they peak, which happens at different times. So there's no right that the Grey Goose has to continue to do that. However, we've had support from our neighbors, and we'd like to continue in a neighborly fashion to accommodate where we can.
Yeah.
And we think it makes a lot of sense to continue to do that. But
No, I
yes,
think-
there is an agreement.
I would agree. What is the expected, it's probably somewhere here, but I'll just ask, what is the expected enrollment or membership numbers for the Equinox?
Well, again, in the same area of anywhere from 2,000 to 2,300, same along historically with when the Southport Athletic Club peaked.
And will there be a maximum, a cap on the number of members that are allowed, and then a waiting list kind of thing?
Not in any formal way. I mean, this is very different. I can let the representatives of Equinox speak to their operation, but very generally stated, they're not a club that just looks for the next $10 member. This is a very much a highly programmed, very controlled, 2,000 sort of target is how they operate, and they can speak to the 80 locations. And
Fairfield County in particular to know how they'll operate here.
The CAP is quote-unquote self-operating because the nature of the way Equinox conducts their business and the services and programs they provide their members, if they did reach a point where the facilities were stretched to the point that they couldn't make the standard, then I suppose they would impose a wait list.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do know that there are some gyms that, you can't join because they're full, but I was just curious, frankly, more than anything.
Our target is to bring the club, in terms of members, back to what it was in the days when the Southwood Racket Club was prosperous.
Okay, and my last question is, could you submit a copy of that parking agreement?
I don't think there's a reason we couldn't. Yes, I think,
Okay, yeah.
sure.
I mean, if there is an agreement for the parking to be shared with another business and facility, again, I support it, I don't object to it, but I think it is important for it to be part of the record relating to our meeting the parking requirements under the regulations.
Mr. Savonchek and Mr. Lynn.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Barron?
While Mr. Wise is up there, is that his name? I think he might be. I have a question about the membership.
Yeah, the only concern that Mr. Wise was raising was to try to, and I guess it's hard to do in a public setting, but to protect some confidentiality to it in terms of between us, because of the other parties to it. I don't know whether we could submit it to staff for your review, just so that it would not become a public document.
That's fine. I mean, I suppose that one way to do it, and perhaps there's a monetary component there which is sensitive, or some other feature. I'm not concerned about that.
Right.
And there's certainly, you can redact
fair enough.
confidential information.
That's fine.
I'm concerned about the parties to the agreement, the meets and bounds, the times, that if there are times, I don't know what the terms are, but I'm talking about the mechanics of the use of the parking lot and the shared nature between
Not a
the
problem.
facilities.
And just to be absolutely clear, this is intended to be a neighborly
Absolutely.
accommodation that frankly, we can't take credit for other than as we've come to own the property, we've respected and have every
Absolutely.
desire to continue.
And to that point, if we're approving a plan of which parking is a pretty significant component, and we know that there's an agreement to share this with somebody, it would really be, we would be remiss if we didn't have that, understood completely for the record.
The ability just to redact, proprietary stuff would
Yeah.
be helpful. We'll do that.
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Barrett, you had a question?
I had a question about the membership, because, I mean, in 2,300, whatever it is, it's just a number. Because I'm not familiar with the Equinox facilities. Could you just talk a little about the characteristics of your membership, like how active are they? How many times? A lot of times an athletic club will have a membership number, but some of those people signed up and don't go very often and still maintain it. So the types of programs that you offer, do these 2,300 people all going to be showing up 3 times a week, or, how does that really?
With your indulgence, I'm not the person to answer that. I'd certainly like to call on our professionals who represent Equinox to do that.
Okay, because I don't mean to get trapped, but like the 2,300 is just a number. A lot of clubs, really the sky is the limit because they keep enrolling people and they don't always show up. So it's really practically how does your club operate?
Happy to answer that. For the record, Tim Palancia, the area manager for Equinox.
Yeah.
On an average, on a member basis, for comparables, we've been referring to Darien, which is very similar to this location and expectations, and that fluctuates right around the 2,000 to 2,100 mark, and that's been for a number of years now at that range. So I'm very confident it's going to be very similar to that. So that member base aside, on a daily basis, we probably see between 400 to 500 visits a day.
Okay.
So we'll have early morning commuter traffic, we'll have after some school drop-off traffic, and then we'll also have after-work traffic. So it'll fluctuate, and that's dispersed throughout the course of the day.
400 to 500 visits a day. That's what I was more getting
Yep.
to. So thank
Yes.
you.
So Tim Palancia, and the area manager for Equinox.
Well, what's your average occupancy at 6, 7 o'clock at night?
6, 7 o'clock at night?
Yeah.
Yes, on an hourly basis, it's probably only about 40 to 50 people, if that, and that varies. It's pretty much right after the work, so that would be at
And what's your peak
5,
time
6,
of
7.
day?
Peak time of day is probably between 9 and 11 o'clock in the morning with the school drop-offs. So that staggers, that flow steadily comes in between the different, school grades in that drop-off visit. And then we'll have an early morning commute flow. Really 5 a.m. is probably busier than 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning. So really is pretty widespread. If there's ever a time that we do look to see the biggest traffic, it's really just that 2-hour window each day.
And it's reflective of the membership. That in Darien, you primarily have like, married homeowners and stuff like that who are if they're gonna work out, they're gonna work out in the daytime as opposed to, say, singles in some, say, urban location you might have where evening hours would make a lot more sense.
Correct. And that's exactly what we see. In New York City, we'll see a lot more after-work crowd. In ours, we see a much more of a dispersed, visit throughout the day.
Thanks, Tim.
You're welcome.
Other questions before I summarize in less than 30 seconds?
Yeah, just one. I
Yes.
wasn't sure in all we've heard tonight. At the beginning, somebody raised a question I was curious about with the crosswalk.
Yes.
Was that addressed?
Actually, now you raise it, I don't think it was.
I think we were waiting what was going to happen or how it was going to change or...
Oh, okay. Do you want to, Bill, or somebody?
He
just
went
address
into
it?
he came up and then he went right into the trees and the landscape and we got sidetracked on that.
I know Bill can do this, but,
Go ahead, steal his thunder.
I'll just jump in because I'm the one that threw him in front of it. As part of the, I believe it was the police department commentary,
Yes.
with staff, they were concerned about the safety and location
Now,
of the
by the way,
cross-
I've never seen a comment like that.
That was
I've never seen a
Completely
comment
useless?
like the police comment on the crosswalk in this report.
Absolutely useless.
Well, nevertheless, what we've done here is, we've added a sidewalk on the other side of Post Road, and we have relocated the crosswalk. We've created paved paths that
right.
are accessibility compliant, and we reworked the radii of the curbs and the aprons into the smaller of the two parking lots. So that's a revision that was made and resubmitted into town, and we feel it addresses the intent of that comment.
Could there perhaps be some kind of signage from the pedestrian's viewpoint to remind them that they're crossing a street? Because I have, my dentist is right around the corner, and I can't tell you how many times I'm driving down that street, and somebody's on the phone, they just dropped the kid off, they're trying to scramble to a class and not paying attention, and they just assume that the road is an extension of the parking lot, because it's a big sea of asphalt.
Right.
So if we could do something to help that situation.
Yeah, I just spoke to Mr. Galante, and he thinks that's an excellent suggestion.
Yeah.
Again, could be embodied in that we would put some sort of signage up there that would be pedestrian-oriented to remind them that they are allowed to engage in a crosswalk.
And then the other thing that...
Sorry.
Well, the other thing that a light or something, at the crosswalk area, but is once you get across, there really is no pedestrian circulation to the gym. Like, I obviously have
You mean from
some
the other side of the street?
experience. So once you cross the crosswalk,
You're in a parking lot.
you're in a parking lot
Yeah.
as a pedestrian, and you're just simply walking through, and, so we typically see some sort of, striping or some...
Fluidity.
Yeah.
pathway, like you see. It does get back to the fact that we're dealing with an existing site,
Yep.
but, and there's never been an accident, that's not an excuse that we can't make it better. I don't know, we could do some sort of striping here. Yeah, I mean, we could do some sort of, I won't call it striping, but some sort of notation that would establish this as a pedestrian access.
Right. Look out.
Yeah. But we're happy to do that if you make that a condition along with the signage and then submit that for your review through staff to make sure you're satisfied with that.
I mean, it's, I don't think it's a requirement. I think we're talking just practical stuff.
No, I
now,
agree. It's a good suggestion.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
just one quick comment. I do appreciate the sidewalk. My office is right down the street, so I observe everything that everyone said at all hours. People use the gym to run out of too, so they'll go change their clothes and go for a run. And there's no sidewalk there. The sidewalk's going to be huge. It may help because when you walk down that part of Old Post Road, you have to go onto the street. And so we ordinarily cross, and we usually don't even cross on the crosswalk. You just it's like a shotgun approach. You just you take your chances when you cross the street. So I think the sidewalk will help, may alleviate some of the concerns, but you know, so I appreciate it, because I'm right 500 feet down the road.
Good. Anybody else? Okay.
And where I started, I guess, we are really excited about this for the reasons I said. One, we're keeping a good use fit from a zoning standpoint, where it's been successful and harmonious and compatible for 3 or 4 decades. But we're taking that use fit without having to worry about what we're going to do with this important piece of property in the village, and we're putting it in the hands of an operator who's got an unparalleled reputation. We've gone with Roger and Michael to an architectural firm that I think is well-known, well-regarded for the beautiful work they do, and I think they've done that here. When you look at the before and after. And by doing that, we're enhancing the facility so the residents can enjoy it more. And again, ganging the gang for Fairfield, I think it really says something about our community, its reputation, that this is a location that Equinox is committed to come to, wants to come to, and believes they will thrive in. So we're very pleased with this application. We hope you are too, and we'll certainly abide by any of the conditions of approval that were referenced tonight as we continue to make this site plan as beautiful and as safe as it can be. Okay? We thank you very much.
Very good, thank you, Mr. Fallon. Thank you, everybody. Does any member of the public wish to be heard on this item? Wow, I thought one of you had no, nobody? So what were we, no, I'm just kidding. All right, so no rebuttal. You can't, you're done. All right, so I'm going to close the hearing, close the meeting, adjourn the meeting.